Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show. With your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. Yeah, technology, man. We're always figuring something out.
I often say, prior to every show, I would like to just maybe lose a little bit more of my hearing.
What? What?
I was like, my God, that was the loudest I've ever heard in my life. Anyway.
But now we've learned something yet again.
Yes,
and that's
we
good.
have.
Yes. Awesome.
With big thanks to the listeners. Thank you guys so much.
Yes.
We're keeping steady, and you're telling people, and that's an awesome thing. And please tell more people.
And you keep listening, yes. And so keep listening.
Yes.
And keep having your friends tell more people to listen. Because
we don't have any advertisement. This is it. If you guys don't advertise, we got nothing.
Right.
So we rely on you.
Spread the word.
And we just keep bringing in cool guests all the time.
Totally.
Well, we try.
Yeah.
We haven't had any duds yet.
No.
No. And you know why? Because we weed them out way before they even come on the air.
That's right. That's right. And we try to make it fun for them.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
because it's fun for us.
And one of the coolest dudes is our buddy,
Mr. Jason Sadidas.
That's right. And what does he give us?
Quick click.
That's right.
See how quick that was? Quick click.
He even said it.
Got that?
He just keeps producing, and we can't thank him enough.
Such a good guy.
Yeah, and just a hell of a player, man.
Yeah, I mean,
It's crazy.
he's all the work that he did with the digital stuff too, the Kemper profile stuff that we did together, and we're going to do more.
Yeah, that's cool.
He's he spends a lot of time in two different areas, one in this country and one in the Canadian country of Canada.
Yeah.
and he's just settling back into Canada right now, and we're going to do a little bit more once he gets settled in. So it's going to be a cool thing.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah,
and we want you to come to the website, of course, ampsandaxescast.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're going to get all the goodies. You're going to be able to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the whole bit. But I discovered that East Amplification now has an Instagram page.
Yes, we do.
And
we do.
I put a thing out the other night, but I want to tell everybody, if you're following us, follow that.
Right.
Because you're going to have new stuff going up there all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my guy Brandon is starting to get on top of things with that. Thank you, Brandon.
Yes. And that is cool because then we can, everything will intertwine and all,
Absolutely. So, if you Instagram us or whatever, follow us on Instagram. What are you doing on Instagram? I don't know.
You follow it and you like it.
And you like it. Okay. So go follow and like East Amplification. We would all thank you very much for it.
Yeah. And of course our Amps and Axes page too.
Absolutely.
So spread that love around and we greatly appreciate that.
Immensely.
Immensely?
Immensely.
Immensely.
That's right.
You don't hear that too often these days.
Well, I just said it, so can't say that anymore now, can you?
Now, you were going to tell me about this cool guitar, which I know some about.
I just saw it the other day. I really...
Go here. You can
I don't know. I just thought it was cool because... And, we talk about guitar woods and everything all the time. And does it make a difference? And yes, it does. And, no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. No, it does. And it's this is not wood. Okay, so
no, it's composite material.
Right. And is it going to make a difference? I think it is, but maybe it's cool. I've never heard one yet.
Here's the shocker. Comes from Germany.
Okay.
Where, now they don't even, they have such range, but they also are they're turning into a very green country.
Germany?
Yeah. I mean, you know, their cars, they have hydrogen cars and electric cars and diesels that, you know, well, some of their diesels are breaking the law, but
Let's not go there.
but you know, this guitar company is out of there, and here's the problem.
Okay.
I'll tell you the problem.
I didn't know it had one, but okay.
So I saw this on the, what is it called? You got to help me. It's the NAMM over there.
Oh, Music Mess.
Okay. So they had a, you know, YouTube demo. I think it might have been on Premier Guitar.
Okay, could be.
And every time, and look, I understand, you know, that a lot of guitar players, especially young guitar players, this is not something that a young guitar player would be buying, because this is in the $3,000 range.
Yeah, it's $2,880 and up.
You got to have a little bit of a career, and you're making some money. But every time that I hear these things, it's either stone clean,
Okay.
right? Just clean. They literally, here it is clean. G, G, D, D, A, A. Okay, now here it is distorted, and it is literally 80 dB a gain going through something that's, you know, there's no mid-range.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they're just, we're going to drop it down to A, and here we go. And I'm going, okay, we just went from opposite ends of the spectrum. I heard 30 seconds of the clean, and now this guy's going to just fart riffs out in D or whatever.
Right, and so many guitars sound so good and have such a character with just a little hair on the amp, you know, and you can see what the guitar does as you vary picking attack and change the volume. There's no dynamics once you're gained out that high. You know?
I don't understand why they do it with guitars, because when it comes to amplifiers, depending upon the amplifier now, you know, if you go into the Angle booth, you're not going to hear guys, you know, you're going to hear the heavy stuff.
Right.
Because Angle's got a reputation for that.
Right.
Not that you can't do the stuff with Angle like a regular Marshall or anything. Because Steve Morse is
Angle, Diesel, all those kind of guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're known for.
They're known for that, yes. But this is a guitar. And for some reason, they take these guitars, and whether it's like, and it can be anybody, Jackson, BC Rich, Charvel, they kind of go from this very sterile, almost non-lifeless clean to just so far over the top, you're going, I don't know what it does.
Right. I mean, don't you want to show the nuances of your piece of gear, whether it's a guitar or an amp? Don't you want to show the nuances of it? It's like, okay, here's what it sounds like here, and look, this is cool because you can roll the volume back and it retains the highs, or it does this, or, you know, with an amp, it's like, cool, you can roll the guitar volume down and the amp cleans up a lot. And, you know, it's you know, it's like polar opposites, like you said, it's polar opposites of the sonic spectrum.
And it's just not a good selling point for their stuff. I'm like, you know, look, at $2,800 or $3,000, the guys that are going to probably be buying this probably are not going to be in that group of people, because they're probably going to be guys in their 30s or 40s or whatever,
or 50s or 60s or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That have been
playing a while.
Yeah, and that can shell out that kind of money.
Well, yeah, but you know, and honestly, there are a lot of guitars that are more expensive than this, and we never even got to the name. And I'll look at. There are a lot of guitars that are more expensive.
Yes,
but the people that are going to purchase this pretty much know how to handle a guitar.
This ain't your starter guitar.
No, they know what to do with volume and tone controls and things like
Yeah.
that. So you might want to show that off when you're demoing the piece of gear, you know?
Yeah,
it serves you no purpose to go from one extreme to the other.
I really want to know, maybe they're trying to get hits on YouTube and they want younger guys to look at it or something. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. But it just, to me, and I don't know the name, I forgot the name, but they, you know, it's a cool guitar. It's got these reliefs in the body, and it literally is composite.
Sorry, these guys are based in the Netherlands.
The Netherlands.
Yes.
That's right. I apologize. That is true. Well, still, it's a European company. I knew they were European, because I don't think they were at NAMM. They may have been.
And I believe it's Aristides. I believe that's how you pronounce the guitar. But it's an all composite guitar, and supposedly it's a carbon and glass fiber. And there's also something in here that is supposed supposed to mimic the resonance
of wood.
Of wood, yeah, because and I'm sorry, I'm blanking here for a second. Yeah, it's the resin in here has, they say, millions of little air bubbles
to give it that space.
Yeah, they supposedly act as like mini sound chambers, and very consistently all throughout the composite as well.
Yeah,
which I thought was kind of cool. It's like, they're trying to not use wood, but make it sound like wood, as opposed to just pouring a solid composite, which I thought was cool.
That's like our buddy Steve Mosier, that makes Moses Graphite.
Mm-hmm.
He that same thing. He tries. He said, I don't know how many formulas they went through before they found the one that was like, wow, this sounds like wood, and still reacted normal.
Yeah, this is a whole nother chemical development that these guys have come across. But and the only wood on it, if you want it, is the neck. You can also get a complete composite. The fretboard. You can also get a complete composite neck with the fretboard.
Yeah.
So there's no trees being chopped down at all.
Some guys don't like that feel
cool.
under their fingers. Mm-hmm. That's probably why they're giving you the option.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. But it's it was something different that just caught my eye.
And it looks like what it to me, and it probably is. It looks like they've got the hip shot bridge and the hip shot tuners on that. Mm-hmm. So it's got some USA parts on it.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
But look, I'm not against what they make a guitar out of. Of course, it would be nice if we could hear what it sounds like across the spectrum.
Right.
But that, I'm all for that. I mean, if they don't have to cut trees down, honestly, when you really get down to the brass tacks of it, a lot of these exotic woods, it's just the aesthetics. It doesn't change. Yeah, and I know, boy, I'm sure the email's going to light up now, but it really doesn't affect the tone too much because, honestly, they're using mostly maple for those crazy looks. They do some other stuff, walnut and things like that, but they all kind of have those same properties.
Yeah, I'm still going with it changes the sound. I know that, changing the fretboard changes the sound. I mean, a rosewood Strat does not sound like a maple Strat.
Yeah,
it just doesn't.
Now, the thing is, when they get to the tops, especially on some of these woods, because they're very expensive, they're just putting a veneer.
Oh, yeah.
So then the tonal effect is probably nothing because it's such a paper-thin thing on top of it. If they're doing like a half-inch top, then I do believe it'll probably add something to it at that point.
And I don't know if we ever brought this up before, but people with the argument it doesn't change the tone, blah, blah, blah. I know that wood affects tone just from making speaker cabinets. Now, if it changes the tone of speaker cabinets, which it does,
yes.
God, it's got to change the tone of a guitar. I mean, come on.
Well,
seriously.
I heard an interview with Guthrie Govan.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you say his last name.
I know. We just found out, Govan.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I heard an interview with him, and he uses stainless steel frets on his Charvel. Mm-hmm. It's a very expensive Charvel, by the way. Like $3,500 for that thing or something.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably got it's the best of the best.
He that's a guy who's he actually talks about how he wears those frets out too.
Stainless.
Whoa. Yeah, it's a cat that plays all the time. Mm-hmm. So anyway, he said, does it change the tone? He said, yeah, he hears it. He hears a little bit when it's clean. Mm-hmm. He said, when you start adding gain to it, it just all kind of falls together, but he has, that guitar is very versatile. It goes from almost jazz sounding to Strat sounding to just crazy, balls out. Mm-hmm. And I bought the album, The Aristocrats, the new one.
Cool.
And he covers a lot of ground with that guitar. So does it make a difference? If anybody's going to be able to tell, and Guthrie Govan is, let's just call him top of the chain right now, because the other human that is better, or that I wouldn't say better, but knows more, he hasn't exposed himself yet on the internet. If he hears a difference, then there's a difference.
It's there.
Yeah. He said the reason he went with stainless, because they last. Because he uses a bone nut, because he found that the carbon graphite ones, or the graphite composite ones, it would just, after a while doing tremolo bends and all the bends he does, just started sawing through it. He tried brass, it went through it. He tried the
really?
Yeah, he was just chewing them up. So he went to bone, and he said bone is the best because it's not a tonal difference. It just lasts.
Wow.
So he went with stainless because he said they last, and he said when you do bends, it is literally like silk.
Oh, yeah, true.
Because the frets are not wearing them down and putting grooves in them. So you get that they're very polished and they're very slick.
Someone had brought. I ran into somebody at some venue one day that was building guitars around here, and it was a fiberglass neck with stainless steel frets.
Wow.
And Mick, I tell you, man, it was like stretching a string
beyond its limits.
over a glass bottle.
Yeah.
Like if you had it suspended between two glass bottles or something. It was just there was so little resistance. It felt like artificial,
like something was wrong
to play. Yeah, it's like you would really have to get used to it because it just didn't feel like a standard guitar anymore.
Yeah.
You know, not good or bad. It's just it would take some getting used to.
And I think as the technology grows, I know traditionalists like Dean Farley, because he says it at the beginning of our show, every show. He would probably die, with the Dunlop 6100s in his hand as they were impaling him with stainless steel frets before he would ever play stainless steel.
Right.
But as the technology gets better, which it always is, with pickups and things, even analog just passive pickups, I think you're going to be able to kind of get over that pingy thing a little bit better as time goes on, because it does solve some issues with having to refret a guitar a lot faster than normal.
Right.
But I will tell you this, and Guthrie mentions it, luthiers hate them.
Oh, yeah.
They charge you extra because they
have to buy new tools.
They have to buy new tools. It ruins their tools.
Yep.
And if they don't do it properly, if they don't have the experience, they can ruin your fretboard.
I wouldn't doubt it.
You got to do the whole iron thing, really heat up the frets so they pop out, so the wood expands. It's a whole thing. So they're cool in one aspect, but if you play like Guthrie, there's a good chance you're going to have to replace them.
That's the tough part.
You're going to have a good time finding somebody that knows what they're doing, because it is hard on the tools. But
well, then you just throw the neck away.
Yeah. So the what would you call them? Netherlands? Netherlanders? Or
the Netherlanders.
Is that what they're called? I don't even know.
I don't know. The folks from the Netherlands,
Eastlanders or whatever they put on them.
The Netherlandics.
It looks like a cool concept. If there's any videos out there that have it where it's more into just where it has a little
range,
if it has a little hair on it, we would love to hear them.
Yeah.
Because I'm really interested to hear how that guitar sounds in more of a rock and roll and maybe a little bit blues setting.
Love to hear one in person.
Yeah,
it'd be cool.
Hopefully, won't. Well, maybe we have to get on a plane and go across the ocean.
Yeah, one never knows. Could happen.
Yes,
it could happen.
So anyway,
well,
we have a guest.
Yeah, of course, because that's what we do. 99% of the time.
Yeah, we tried.
That's what we do. Once in a while, it's just you and I talking, but those are, according to our fans, very informative shows as well.
And then some of them no.
It's all good.
Yes, it is.
It's all good.
The guy we have coming up, is a New York-based guy.
New York-based guy seems to play with a lot of jam-based kind of players and things like that.
Yeah. Would you call him a utility guy? We'll have to ask.
We'll see what he considers himself.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but he, he's played with a lot of good players. I was reading the bio, and he's had the opportunity to play with some really cool cats.
Looks like he's been around the horn a couple times.
Yeah,
like some of our other guests.
So I'm sure he'll have some good experiences to impart to our listening audience.
Yes. So coming up,
yes,
would be Mr. Scott Metzger.
Hey, this is Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke, and you are listening to Amps and Axes.
All right, and we're back. And as promised, our guest of the week, Mr. Scott Metzger. Scott, thank you so much for being on with us, man.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be chatting with you guys.
Cool. And chat we will.
Yeah, man.
I was looking at some of your bio stuff online, and you've got a chance to play in some really cool situations with some really cool people. But we'll get to that after we find out where Scott Metzger came from, and what put the nasty music bug in you, man. So give us a little history of Scott.
Okay, yeah. Well, I grew up in a real small town in western central New Jersey, right on the Delaware River. Oh. Real small river town out there. And there wasn't a whole... Called Lambertville, New Jersey.
Lambertville, okay.
And, there wasn't a whole lot to do growing up out there. There's only about 3,000 people in the whole town. And, it was real easy to get into a lot of trouble out there growing up, so.
You sound like you speak from experience.
Yeah, you know how it is.
Of course.
Everybody knows everything you do.
Right.
That's right. You better believe it. And, everybody's looking into the neighbor's business and all that. Mm-hmm. So, I started, I picked up the guitar. It seemed like a thing to do. I always loved music from a real early age. And when I was about 14 years old, I got my first guitar. And it immediately started to it occupied all my time. And here I am, 20-something years later, still doing it.
Now, was anybody in your family musical? Did the music aspect come from anywhere?
There were a couple of guitars lying around.
Oh.
My dad had an Epiphone acoustic, but he wasn't he was just strictly a hobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, both my folks had great taste in music. So I grew up with a lot of really good music being played in the house all the time. And, that might have planted some seeds,
I'm sure. What were they listening to?
There was a lot of Dylan around the house, a lot of Springsteen, and those were like the constants. But then they also, my dad had an appreciation for a lot of straight ahead jazz, and so there would be like the occasional Hank Mobley album sitting around, and that stuff was always like a mystery when I was young. It was like, never quite understood it, but wanted to. And eventually came around to that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I think in the beginning it's jazz. It's supposed to be a mystery. Nobody's supposed to understand it. What are they doing?
Yeah, no. When I first started getting into jazz, I had no idea what was going on. It's like a completely different language. It's its own thing, entirely. But yeah, so that's about it. It was basically like a guitar was lying around the house, and eventually curiosity got the best of me, and just picked it up and started figuring out some music that I liked.
You said you got your own guitar at 14.
Yes.
Was it something that you purchased or your parents did? And do you remember?
No, it was a gift. It was a gift from my folks, which I think they later went on to regret getting me. But yeah, no, they got me it was a Les Paul Studio, a jet black Les Paul Studio.
Oh, nice.
Still got it. I'm looking at it right now, actually.
Very cool.
That would have been was it one of the first years, or was it?
I guess so. I don't know. I mean, I don't know when they started making them, but this would have been about 1992.
Oh, okay. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll have to research it while we're talking, but I think 83 was the first year they made the studio. Yeah.
I don't remember.
And
never owned a studio.
Do you know what the difference is between a studio and a standard?
Besides the binding and all that?
The binding, yeah. If you look at the top of the guitar, like the maple cap, is like a 1/4 inch thinner. That's what they do. They cheat that part just a little bit. They don't put the binding around the body, and they don't put the binding around the neck, right? Around the fingerboard. And I think that's basically it.
So on the headstock, it's thinner. I've gotten lucky. The headstock hasn't cracked on this one, which is the classic thing.
I'm talking about the maple cap on the body.
Yeah,
It's like
but he said the headstock on those is thinner as well.
Yes, the profiles, if you're looking at it head on, is a little bit skinnier. But even back then, I think most of them, except for Customs, had the thin because they were trying to.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing. Gibson has done some things in the past.
Just a couple.
We have many Gibson conversations about, like, why did you invent this year?
But see, what I don't understand is if you shave wood off of there, you're not really saving any money or wood because it just winds up in wood chips unless you're selling wood chips, you know.
I honestly think they were probably doing it to try to combat some of the tuning issues. Because, you know, your G and your D, they take off on angles. So they're going backwards and to the sides.
Yeah.
Which creates tuning problems, right? So I think they were trying to make it smaller.
Oh, so width-wise, like...
Yeah, so the strings were not breaking as hard. The other...
Yeah, maybe.
But, you know, it looked weird. Mm-hmm. You know, on some of the models, they even went thinner than probably... Well, yours is a 90-something. They moved it out again. In the 80s, they were making them pretty thin. They looked a little weird.
Well, there's nothing thinner than like a melody maker.
Oh, those were just straight on.
They're just it's like they trimmed up a piece of 2x4 and that was it.
Well, you know, they put these little wood wings when they make the neck.
Oh, yeah.
And they just eliminated that.
Yeah, they're straight. Shouldn't be any tuning problems on those guitars.
Not at all.
Not at all. All right, sorry, we got way off track.
That's what I do.
Yeah, you do it well. So what was the first amplifier that this Studio 2 was? I mean, the Studio was plugged into.
Oh man, that's a good question. It was a Fender Red Knob. I couldn't tell you It was a solid state Fender Red Knob.
Okay.
Something or other. That I don't know. I remember it sounding incredible in my bedroom. You know, playing along to like Allman Brothers records.
Nice.
It sounded just like it sounded like a Blackface Deluxe as far as I was concerned. Then I don't know what I would think if I heard it now. You know.
Right. Then I heard a Blackface Deluxe. You know
what I mean? In my mind. It was,
of course. Well, you were making beautiful music, man, and that's all that mattered. You know. That's all that matters. So where did that go? Did that turn into a high school band, or what happened next?
Yeah, sure. Well, you know, actually, there weren't that many people that played. There weren't that many kids interested in music in my town. So, you know, I was playing so much. I loved playing, and that led me to asking my band director at my high school, you know, how to. You know, what did he think about, you know, pursuing this more seriously? And he recommended trying out for what they called a regional jazz band at the time, which I don't know if they still have that or not. But that was the advice that he gave me to fall in with some more serious musicians and, you know, meet some more people. And so, you know, on his recommendation, I tried out for that, and miraculously I got in after playing. You know, I'd only been playing for, it felt like a few months, you know.
Wow.
So my sophomore year in high school, I got into this regional jazz band, and it was great, man. It was great. All of a sudden I had all these new friends that lived, you know, not in my town but in the surrounding area, and they were serious players, you know.
Now, in that short amount of time, had you learned to read, or were you starting to learn to read in the jazz? I can't imagine you would be part of that band without knowing how to read music.
Right. Well, I knew how to read. I had played the saxophone.
Oh.
We're going way back now. I mean, third grade, you know, when you had to choose an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I started playing the alto sax, and, you know, went through all the Mel Bay books back then. So I knew notation. And translating it to the guitar came pretty easily. I don't remember like struggling with that too much.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's a whole different animal, you know, going from horn to guitar.
It's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got it easy compared to horn players, you know. Everything's laid out for us to see, you know. It's a visual thing. The guitar, it's like, okay, you know, you can play a D on the 12th fret on the D string, or 3rd fret on the B string, or 7th fret on the G string. Mm-hmm. It's all right there, right in front of you. As a horn player, you got to have, you know, if you're transposing and stuff, that's like deep level math as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing.
So you stayed with guitar, and that's cool.
So I stayed with guitar. Yeah, I took the easy road.
That's right.
So and then that just eventually led to, I was getting good feedback, and I was playing in a coffee shop in Princeton, New Jersey, Small World Coffee, one day, and the guitar player from Fish, Trey Anastasio, wandered in and heard me playing and recommended me. He liked what I was doing, and we had a chat, and he said that he had a friend putting together a band, and that friend turned out to be a guy named Tom Marshall, who wrote all the lyrics and still writes a lot of the lyrics for Fish. And Tom was putting a band together at that time called Amphibian, and he needed a guitar player. And I was probably about 18 or 19 at that point. And, I got hired for the band. I met Tom. He liked what I was doing, and that turned into the first touring gig for me.
Wow.
Did you hear this crazy irony behind that? A guy from Fish came in, saw him, and then he joined a band called Amphibian.
It's no coincidence. Funny. Those guys are clever.
He was literally coming out of the water.
Right.
That's right.
That's pretty funny, man.
And Fish spells their band name with a PH.
Yes.
Tom spelled his band Amphibian with an F.
That's too funny.
Not to be outdone, I will spell Amphibian with an F.
Now
Fish hilarious.
Fish is one of those bands that, they have like this really big cult following.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the Grateful Dead. Actually, it's a lot of Deadheads, right? I'm not wrong with this. That kind of overflowed when there's
crossover. Yeah. I think there's a big crossover.
But amazing musicians.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they get like zero airplay, and they do a festival for 5 days, and it's like 100,000 hippies show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yep. No, they've done it. They've like beat the system. They figured it out.
Yeah. A lot of those jam bands are nothing but virtual, and the following is immense.
It goes against the grain of everything that we see today.
Every record exec that's still left is beating his head and going, what how do they do?
How does this happen?
No advertising. How does this happen?
They put out one album 20 years ago. They're still touring.
Right.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, I think Howard Stern, I heard something, one of those big shows, Howard Stern, I think it was just talking about them the other day, saying, these guys got to be like absolute geniuses. Like they figured it out. Like they play whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
They put out a record only when they feel like it.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for like 30 years, and every year for New Year's they play the Garden like 5 nights, and they've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's like they win.
Totally.
I mean, literally they could set a stage up in the middle of the field in Nebraska, and 100,000 people will pull up and go, yeah, we knew you guys were
They would
here.
just put one post out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it would
that's
go
right.
insanely viral.
Well, I think their tour bus has a GPS on it that everybody just
follow.
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, that's right. And the people that come to see them are like, it's amazing. I mean, the music, they're like fanatical about the music. It's pretty amazing. They trade like stats of like how many times did they play this song last year? It's like baseball stats.
Wow,
it's amazing.
Oh,
it's an amazing thing.
It is a carryover from the Dead because the Deadheads were the same way.
Oh yeah,
it's like they played this song back in '83. It was the second half of the night, and it was the third song in the set.
They allow the recordings too, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's a big thing.
That's a huge thing. I went and saw the Allman Brothers like twice, and I was like, "Is the first 3 rows nothing but recording machines and high-end mics?" And everybody was like, "Yeah, pretty much." And I'm going, "Who's paying for that?" And they go, "Well, the guy that's sitting in the 4th row."
That's true.
It's totally in-house. That's right.
Yeah, man.
So, back to the coffee house for a second. What kind of stuff were you doing that it caught Trey's ear? I mean, what kind of material were you doing? Were you doing strange tunings and what? I'm curious to what caught his ear.
There was no strange tunings. To this day, I'm scared away from tunings things, open tunings and all that. I stick to the standard go-to. Well, it was a band. It was a trio, and the trio was upright bass, and the guy and JP, the drummer, was he was playing like a hand drum, but not in a traditional way. He actually ran it through an amp, through a distortion pedal, and through like a wah pedal and delay and stuff.
Cool.
And it was kind of like, it was very soundtracky, I guess is the best way to say it. It was, we were like, I was really, really into like Brian Eno, and there's also, like Medeski Martin Wood would be a good reference to like what we were going for.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
coffee house music, very like artsy coffee house music.
I mean, when you said coffee house, it just conjured up a solo acoustic thing, and I'm going, okay, well, what caught Trey's ear with that? But I could see the ensemble thing, and going in a left of center kind of direction. That it would catch my ear for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what are these guys doing? This is cool.
It was different. Yeah, we actually it was a short-lived band, and we called it F Hole, and we put out 2 records.
Really?
Yeah, they exist. I found one the other day. They're around, and it actually holds up.
Wow. We're gonna have
it's a good band name, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, everybody's gonna hear this now, and there won't be a copy left on the face of the earth
there you go.
once this goes out. So you know what that means? We're gonna have to get on eBay tonight and try to find something.
Yes.
Before we put this out next week.
It's around. You got to dig deep, but it's around. You'll be up late looking for it, but you'll find it.
I'll make it my mission. So that's cool. So. How did life being an amphibian pan out?
It was great. I mean, it was definitely that was a very right place, right time kind of situation for me. Which I think the longer I'm in the music business, the more I do realize that is a big part of it. It's who does hear you. That doesn't change. Over time. That's a big part of it. Because I went from playing coffee houses, with that band to where people were kind of listening to all of a sudden, we were, Tom in that world, that was a really big deal that Tom had a band, and we went straight to playing, 1,000-seat rooms that were sold out.
Wow.
And
that would be a little bit of a culture shock.
Yeah. Well, and it's such a specific scene too, that Fish World. It's like, it was really like thrown into like, rock show mentality all the way,
Yeah. Well, think about it. You go from a coffee house to 1,000 people that are
there to see
you.
Right.
And and they're kind of rabid fans.
Yeah. And they're really like they're music people. Like they hang on every note, they're really listening.
That's cool, man.
It was a crash course, in just figuring it out.
I was just going to say, how long was the rehearsal period? I'm guessing probably not too long.
No, it wasn't too long. It wasn't long enough. It was, we got it together, but with that music too, there is that whole the spirit of like, okay, it's close enough. Let's get it to the stage, and then we'll take it from there.
It's going to change on the stage anyway, right?
Every night.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's trial by fire.
Yeah.
That's cutting your teeth in a big way.
So I imagine at that point you've got other, well, I'm sure other jam band musicians looking at you guys and watching you guys, but also other musicians outside the jam band genre. So where, what was the next thing that happened because of that band? Like whose eye ear did you catch next?
Well, at that point, like I was quite a bit younger than everyone else in the band. Everybody else in the band was like in their mid-30s, kind of my age now, and I at the time was, like I was saying, like 19 or so, I think. Mm-hmm. And there was another guy in the band, Andrew, who was my age, and we were the 2 kind of kids in the band. And me and him decided. Well, he sort of had a band that he had with some friends of his, and long story short, they ended up asking me to be in their band, and that was a band called Rana, and that is the band that we got into it. We did it, we got into a van and we toured 200 nights a year for like 5 years.
Wow,
something like that.
Same type of music.
Nah, it was more of a rock band, like sort of like Talking Heads, a lot less improv and kind of more hard hitting, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were really into like, you know, like in the van, we would always be listening to like the Buzzcocks or Pavement or, you know, like I said, Talking Heads was a lot of that.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So that led to that chapter. This is a really in-depth interview.
We try.
Yeah, man.
We try.
Thought about this stuff in years. That's great.
That's good. And you know, now it'll be recorded for posterity. You know,
There you go.
Yeah, totally. Can let my grandmother hear this.
right.
I'll cut out the curse words then.
Stories she never knew. You know, that's great. So you know, 200 gigs a year for a while with that, and I'm sure at that point somebody else started seeing you guys, and you know, because you eventually have to have caught the eyes and ears of the other musicians that you wound up playing with, because you've either recorded or shared the stage with quite a few musicians over the years.
I have.
know?
A lot of that comes like later in my story, I guess.
Okay.
You know, but yes, like that band got a lot of attention, and we came very close to like hitting it, you know, hitting like the big time, I guess you would say. Like we had some gigs, you know, when Avril Lavigne was enormous, we were opening for Avril Lavigne. We went out, we did some opening dates for Skinnerd. We were all over the map. We had a sound that a lot of different sort of audiences could appreciate. And then like David Lowery from Cracker heard us, and then we ended up doing a lot of stuff with Cracker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was great. REM, Bill Berry from REM, the drummer from REM, ended up producing a bunch of stuff for us at his request.
Wow.
You know, so we did a lot of things in those 5 years. But as bands will do, we got tired of it. You get tired of getting in a van and you know,
200 gigs a year, man. That's work.
I mean, yeah, you know, well, we really wanted it, and we were trying to do it, and
now were they small little tours, like go out 3 weeks, come back, or
most of them.
Okay.
Yeah, there would be a few like, you know, 9 weeks or something, and then come home for a couple of weeks and go back. But you know, for the most part, you know, I think that we learned pretty quick. Like a month on the road in a van is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You need to come home for a minute.
Plus, you have to air that thing out after a while. You know?
Oh man,
I'll leave the doors open for a week.
It gets highly suspicious in there. You know? Really.
It's like, is that feet or what is that?
Yeah, what is that? Exactly.
Somebody leave a sandwich in the back?
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then so just, you know, real quickly, you know, like that band sort of ended, and then I went through a very brief spell where I went to LA and kind of tried that, and that lasted all of about 9 months or so, or 6 months. Just didn't pan out.
You just went out there solo?
No, I got a job offer. I got a band out there called Particle, was looking for a guitar player.
Huh.
And, you know, when Rana decided we were calling it a day for good, you know, the timing seemed right. And frankly, I didn't really know what else to do. You know, I just put 5 years into this band, and, you know, you're kind of like, okay, well, now what? And at that moment, the phone rang, and the band in part, the guys in LA called, and they were looking for a guy, and I went out there, and, you know, we just decided after a while, I just sort of wasn't the guy, and it was a mutual decision, and, you know, I'm still friends with those guys and everything. It was an amicable thing, and so then I came home. I came back to the East Coast, and took some time off, straight up. It took a few years off of performing. I just stopped performing pretty much entirely.
You didn't stop playing, though, did you?
I didn't stop playing. I got a job at one of the School of Rocks here.
Oh.
There was a School of Rock in Times Square.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I taught little kids, you know, and it was a great thing. A lot of kids know how to play Smoke on the Water because of me.
Awesome.
I mean, they're not kids now, but they were
Right.
kids. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so that sort of ends like that first phase of my playing guitar life, I guess.
I didn't know they had a School of Rock in Times Square, man. That's a tiny bit of pricey real estate. Wow.
Oh man, it was right in the middle of everything. It was like on 44th and 8th Avenue.
Wow.
Rent was $8,000 a month.
It must have been insane.
A
It wasn't
week.
small. It wasn't a small place either. It must have been out of control.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, the rents. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm serious when I said week.
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah,
rents
yeah.
are like astronomical.
I went up there, I don't know how long ago, parked the car in a garage, and the guy was like, after like 4 hours, like $62, and I was like, what?
Oh yeah.
$62? And the guy goes, did you see these monthly rates? They were like $600.
Oh yeah.
It was insane.
Oh yeah.
And some of those cars had like a half-inch dust on them. Like they never drive them. I'm going, that's a $90,000 Mercedes, and you're paying $600 a month just to park it here.
Yeah, and they're 6 stories high on the
Yep.
lift and
Yep.
never moves.
Never move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different thing up there.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
Times
It's a whole
Square,
different
it's- yeah.
concept. Yeah.
Wow. So all right. After you ruined all these kids with Smoke on the Water, what happened next?
You call it ruining. I
I'm just being sarcastic.
I know. Well, then, okay, so I took some time away from touring and kind of just reassessing some things and teaching. And in that time, I got a Telecaster, which went on to become an absolute game-changing thing. I didn't realize what a Telecaster is sort of its own thing. It's got its own language and everything. And I didn't expect to get so wrapped up in it, but it's taken me, that was basically about 5 years ago. And it's just been that ever since.
Had you been playing just like Les Pauls or Gibsons up to that point?
Just Les Pauls.
Just Les Pauls.
Yep.
Wow.
That was it. I had the studio, and then I had a special. Is that the one with the mini humbuckers in it?
That's a deluxe, right?
Deluxe.
That's
That
a
was
deluxe.
it.
That's a deluxe.
Yeah, and it had been Les Pauls and nothing but up to that point. And and I got the Telecaster.
Wow.
And sort of just reassessed everything and decided that I wanted to give a shot at being like a New York City working guitarist. And that is what I started to do.
Very cool.
That is awesome.
Which is very different than being in a band.
It totally is. And, I'm just curious, and a lot of people that we have on, it just, one thing seems to lead to another, It's just all organic. But this is just a little bit more of a turn this off, turn this on. You just decide that you want to become a New York City guitar. Now, are you talking session guitarist? Are you talking performing guitarist in like New York clubs and everything? Because it's almost the same as a band.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know at first. Being in the studio is something that I've always like really enjoyed, and I just have I have so much respect for guys who can, come into a musical situation. Like in some cases, you're meeting the people that day, and then you're going to like play something that complements a song that you've never heard before, or, coming up with the right part, just on the spot. And there's something that's very, very inspiring and very intriguing to me about that. So yeah, I definitely, I played on a lot of records in those, those first couple of years of focusing on New York, for sure.
So you did want to dive into the studio aspect of it, which is really cool. I think it's an awesome thing, but I'm wondering, like, how do you just decide you want to be there, and then you're there?
Well, it didn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
I want to be there, and the phone's ringing now, and I'm going into the studio. So
Well, the thing is, again, it's like that right place, right time thing. I mean, there was like, I sort of like looked at the situation. I was like, okay, well, there's a few guys that I know of in New York who are really respected and, I'd like to move in that direction and kind of, try and meet some of these guys. And then you just start going out every night, not knowing anybody and like making new connections and like networking and just going to the shows where, you're hoping you're going to run into some of these people.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it is all about the networking. That is another business that it's like, who knows who. If this guy can't do the session, okay, I know a guy.
And we've heard this story how many times now?
Yeah. It is who knows who.
Exactly.
And
it's also putting yourself out there.
Oh, yeah.
Shaking hands, not being a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Saying
right.
yes.
Yeah, right.
Saying yes.
Yes. When they say, hey, do you like in-ear monitors? Yeah, sure. I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
Never did it before.
Never had them before. Probably going to hate them, but absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. That's no joke, man. Yeah.
Well, Pete Thorne, that was, I remember that part of that conversation. He said there was this one gig that it was him and another guitar player, and the reason he got it is because they said, do you have a problem with in-ears? And he went, no, everything's cool. And he said he had never used them, never even heard anything through them ever. And the other guy said, no way, I can't use them. And that was it. He got the gig.
Right.
Yep. That's like a life-changing word right there. Yes or no, right?
Exactly.
Big thing.
We tout that all the time. Just say yes.
Yeah.
Figure it out later.
That's right.
So what kind of stuff did you wind up playing on?
Well, I ended up playing on a lot of, there was a lot of like country records, because I got in the Telecaster and I was like really into learning the language of that thing and kind of like, focusing on that world. There was just a lot of sort of like session work where it was, I knew maybe like the piano player who was working on a record and, they needed a guitar player. And I mean, it was really all over the map. Like I ended up doing like a lot of pop stuff. You really just gotta, if you're going to go down that road of the session guy, you have to have a lot of stuff, just be able to call up a lot of stuff quickly, come up with good parts, get the appropriate sounds.
Did you run into more situations where the producer or the artist that you were working with knew exactly what they wanted, or did you run into more situations where like, okay, we like your style, do something here? Is it more freeform like that?
I'd say a lot of times you'd come in and you got to gain people's trust. Like I think it's pretty much, in most cases, people are going to be like, okay, we want something like this, we want something like that. And then as the session would roll on, in a lot of cases, you feel people's trust building up, until it comes, it eventually comes to like, okay, well, Scott, like, what do you think? What do you hear happening here? And then, you can take some liberties. But it's not about, it's not about trying to get your thing on somebody else's record.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the total opposite of that. It's trying to do like what the song calls for, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I was just, saying that did a lot of the situations come with, we kind of know what we want. Can you play this? But it sounds like some of it was that, and then it just kind of morphed into, okay, we know your style, we like your style. What do you think? What do you think you should put here? Kind of thing.
Right.
Which is cool.
Right.
It's great.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, a bunch of us are getting hired together. Like there's little like crews, and it's like each crew sort of has something to offer, like has like a unique thing. Let's say, hopefully you're bringing something that it's like, oh yeah, like me and these two guys play together a lot, and we have this kind of vibe together.
Right.
Maybe it's a Daniel Lanois kind of thing over here, or or like more like Rick Rubin or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I heard an interview with Phil X, who's been on a lot of albums. He's an LA session guy.
Yeah.
And he said the first time that he got hired was Alice Cooper. And he was on one of Alice Cooper's, I don't forget what the album was. But anyway, he said that, they had the guitar parts, So he's just, he's doing the guitar parts, but then he just kind of threw in a little something. Just what he thought maybe they would, and they were like, what was that? Mm-hmm. And he was like, I can take it out. And they were like, no. Do it again. So he said by the third song, they were just like, hey, just do your thing. Because he was like trying to envision what they wanted to hear. So instead of just trying to do his thing, he was trying to do their thing. Mm-hmm. Like Scott said, you kind of got to figure out what they want, but then add your little
right.
Little
You do their
yeah.
thing, and you just throw a little bit of your thing in there, and all of a sudden your thing becomes their thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you're making a thing together,
right?
Which is the ultimate goal, right?
Yes,
for sure.
Called your paycheck.
Right. So I read a quote that James Brown had seen you play.
Yeah,
and said that your playing was frightening.
Yeah,
which is but they said what was it? I swear you play so much guitar it scares me.
That's true. That story is going to be hard to top.
Did he end it with "Good God"?
Yeah, it was close. It was close. He was just as James Brown as you would want him to be.
Well, he never was not James Brown.
He saw me play. I was playing a festival, and he was scheduled to headline, and he ended up showing up in time to. He ended up hearing the band that I was playing with, and after our set. He sent his bodyguard up to the stage to find me and to bring me back to his backstage tent.
Wow.
And talk.
What band and what kind of material were you doing at that point? I mean, you're on the bill with James Brown. What was the material that you guys were doing?
Yeah, well, that was the band that I was touring with a lot. That was the band Rana, and it had I could see it had we focused a lot on groove and kind of just like holding a groove, holding the intensity in a groove for long periods of time, and maybe I don't know what it was that caught his ear, but there was also there was a fair amount of guitar soloing in that band too, and. I guess I convinced him. I don't know. I didn't know I was trying to convince him, but I did.
You took it to the bridge.
I took it to the bridge. You got to get down to D,
Well, you made it if he jumps back and kisses himself.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool, man.
That's awesome
to get called backstage by that cat. Because I heard, we've heard some stories, but I've also read some stories that he was not easy to work with. Like he was. Even though he was doing his James Brown thing, he was monitoring like everybody in the band.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, sure. Well, like finding the band on stage, those stories. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, like you get your check and you'd be like, it's a little late this week.
Well, so were you.
You didn't.
That's right.
You didn't take it to the bridge.
Yeah, you were light a few notes. That's right. Yeah, he was old school like that.
Yeah, which God bless him because that's all gone.
Yeah.
He
and Buddy Rich. That's a whole nother. You got to look up stories on Buddy Rich.
Yeah. If it was a 3-hour bus ride, there was a good chance that Buddy Rich would yell at the band for about 59 minutes of that ride.
Oh, sure. I was just listening to those tapes. The tapes exist. I guess somebody in his band had a tape recorder on the bus while he was yelling at the band a bunch of times, and he made like a highlight reel tape.
He's just berating these guys.
They are awesome. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. We were just listening to it the other day.
Buddy Rich's clams. I won't use the word that comes before clams, but that's too funny.
Yeah, that's when musicians were you just had to be it was the best of the best. Yeah. I mean, I saw one, not to go off on a tangent, but I saw a Buddy Rich thing the other day. I was trying to pick up he was doing one of those drum solos. Mm-hmm. And, he was improv in that whole thing. It was no set way of how he did it. And I was trying to pick up the signal for the band to come back in. I don't even know how they did. It was 25 guys hit that thing right on the...
I think you may be mistaken about improving.
You think it was...
I think it was probably dead on, and
really?
They knew exactly when to hit it.
Well, just incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it just so...
Well, even if they didn't, I mean, you know, a guy like that, it's like, you're working for a guy like that, you got to have your eyes on, it's all about the band leader.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let me tell you,
eyes off that guy.
Right.
There wasn't one person not in that band, because they would pan around, you know, and they were all just heads turned, looking right at him.
Oh yeah,
and they were ready.
Oh yeah, well they must have been terrified. They know what's coming.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, an hour berating and getting fired.
Right. You get berated for an hour, then he stops the bus, then you get off and walk home.
Yeah,
and by the time he hits the next gig, he's got a new player.
Exactly.
That's right. There's one of those tapes where he pulls the bus over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god!
Mid-ride, and he kicks a guy off. I mean, that is hardcore.
It is hilarious. If you haven't heard them, Mick, you got to hear them.
I've heard a couple of them on Stern, but it's you know, I was telling this story to Jeff. My old music teacher was a trumpet player for the Otis Redding band.
Huh.
And of course, the drummer was the leader of the band, right? And he said you'd be, you know, rehearsal was like noon in the bar or wherever, you know, the nightclub. And he said there'd be like 4 or 5 guys sitting out there. And he goes, they weren't even, you know, they weren't eating. They were to be there to replace whoever screwed up. So he said, you know, you got like 3 bad notes and the guy would be fired. Mm-hmm. You know, they would fine you and then fire you.
Right.
You know, so it was very cutthroat back then, man. I can imagine there was a lot of stress being a musician back then.
Yeah.
They probably didn't live too long. But we you know, now we're into drummers and horn players.
Yeah, I don't know how the hell we ended up here.
I started that.
Okay.
I take full blame.
Yeah, but I always drive the bus completely off the road.
All right, so where did the musical journey go next?
Well, I mean, it's it's a good question, because it's funny. It's like, you know, the music thing is like, you know, it's such a not straight path. Mm-hmm. You know, that you never know where you're going to end up. So it's, you know, but I played around, you know, the short story is basically I was playing around New York practically exclusively for, you know, probably like 2 years there. And that was where I met a lot of the guys that I've worked with in sessions and, you know, made records with, and the guys who are not kind of unsung heroes, in my opinion. You know, they're guys that make records really special, but aren't the names on the marquee. And one of those gigs, anyway, led me to meeting. I did a gig where I was called to be in the house band at the Warfield for a recreation of The Last Waltz.
Ah.
And that was a really special thing. Some of the guests were amazing. You know, the guitar player Nels Klein from Wilco was one of the guys. I'm forgetting some of the people who were on it that year. Just like kind of star-studded thing. And one of the guests on that gig was a girl named Trixie Whitley, who I knew of to be like a phenomenal singer, and a big fan of her voice and her whole thing. And I ended up doing about a year of touring with her off that gig.
Wow.
And that got me back on the road, and we were mainly in Europe. We did, you know, a solid album cycle of touring all over Europe and Japan and Australia.
What kind of material?
Trixie's thing is so great. It's Trixie Whitley music, which is kind of the highest compliment I can give. I mean, it's really hard to describe it in any other way. She has a totally unique thing going on, and all I can say is, if you don't know it, you should check it out.
Interesting. Gonna have to.
Yeah, she's an incredible singer. She's she comes from a line of a lot of great musical talents, and it's certainly in the blood. And it's an honor to like share a stage with somebody that talented and that great, really.
But what do you know where she is from? Is she also from New York? Or?
She splits her time. I believe that she was born in Belgium, and I think her family split their time between New York City and Belgium, and that's I think that's where the European roots come in, and she does very, very well in Europe. We were playing to it was like 3,000 to 1,000 to 3,000 seat theaters most nights.
It's a strange thing, and I'm sure you saw this, how the difference between American audiences and European audiences, isn't it?
It's very different. Yeah. The whole it's different on like a lot of different levels. Just like the whole celebrity culture, like the way celebrities are treated, it's very different here than it is in Europe. And what translates, what types of taste things are totally different there than here. Yeah. It was great. It was great.
It's funny because you hear of Iron Maiden, right? Now Iron Maiden was one of those super heavy metal bands, big, huge, right? And if you go up to the average person right now and you say, "Hey, what do you know anything about Iron Maiden?" They'd be like, "What?" Who are they? Meanwhile, over in Europe, 30,000 seat arenas and stadiums, and they're packing them, and they're huge, and if they did a tour over here, which they will, they'll fill the places, but it's like, they got albums, but it's just not the same as it used to be. But over there, it's like
still rock gods.
They're like soccer players,
Exactly.
And it's just like they walk on Formula One drivers, soccer players, and heavy metal guys. They rule the world over there.
It's true.
So it's MotoGP too. I'm sorry, I couldn't leave out the motorcycle guys, but it's very strange, and that's why I wanted to get your take on it, because you come over here and it can get just lost in the shuffle, because I guess we're so 5 minutes. Everything's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But over there, those fans are loyal to like the end.
It is true. Yeah, it's totally true. I think it's just like a cultural thing too. It's like you said, like 5 minutes. It's like even in the way, like people drink coffee in Europe than here, all the way down to, it's like you take your time. You can't get to go coffees in most places, and
wow,
Europe. I mean, you just can't. It's just not part of the culture there. It's like you sit down, you take your time, and it's a little slower. It's much slower paced there. I mean, I don't know if that translates to the conversation we're having, but I totally agree. It's like it's a different thing there.
It's a different world. It really is.
Yeah, like they haven't, and it's a good thing. I do know that I saw something where they say like you can sit down at a restaurant in the middle of the day with a cup of coffee, and 2 hours later you're still sitting at the table. Nobody's bugged you. They're not like trying to get that next person in.
Right. They don't. We need this table.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then like at 6 o'clock they roll the streets up because everybody goes home and has dinner. It's like this family first thing that is completely lost here.
Yeah.
So I think that pace of life has never been really gotten into their culture.
Right.
Yet. I'm sure it will eventually, but
I'm sure it starts to, but it all depends on what they really hold important.
Yeah. And then what the downfall is that the guy said he moved to Italy and he went to get cable, and 6 months had gone by and he still didn't have cable.
Yeah, right? See, we'd lose our minds.
Yeah, we'd be like, there'd be the Comcast guy to hung up on you to 57 times.
You can't wait 6 days here. That's like the worst customer service if you got to wait 6 days to get something installed.
I'll tell you, it took me some getting used to. I mean, I'm born and raised in Jersey, and I've been living in New York City for 12 years. I want it's like you just like, I want a coffee, and I'd like it like now, and like 5 minutes goes by. You're like,
and then I'd like to go where I want to go. Yeah. Then I'd like to go where I want to go with that coffee.
Yeah, right. It's said coffee.
We don't have styrofoam cups here. It's like, what?
Sit down while I'll drink. So. All right, so I want to get into a couple of these names that I've read that you've played or recorded with, and just throw out a couple of experiences, man. I mean, we're looking at people like Joss Stone, Questlove, Warren Haynes, Satriani, Soul Live, which I love.
Oh yeah. Sure. Well,
Go.
yeah. Well, Warren Haynes. He invited me. I guess I sat in with Government Mule. I don't know, 5 or 6 times now. Where it's again, like I'd be at a show and I'd be in town, and I'd happen to be there, and if I know Warren well enough, and Warren's like such an inviting guy musically. He loves to play with people. He loves to have people involved, and that happened a couple of times where I was just backstage seeing a Government Mule show, and the next thing you know, Warren's like, oh, come on up for the, we'll play Cortez, And like the last time I did it, I say, oh, I don't even have a guitar. He's like, and he kind of just like pointed at the guitar rack, and there's like 13 Les Pauls. He's like, yeah, you do, Like, oh.
Brian, get the man a guitar.
Yeah.
That's right. And I mean, to play with a guy like that is unbelievable. You gotta, playing. The first time I sat in with him was in Connecticut, and we did Cortez the Killer, and I don't know if I've ever been so scared in my life, walking out on stage.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an Allman Brother.
He's been doing it a couple of years.
Yeah.
Total legend.
Yeah.
Like when they write books, about electric guitars, he's in those books.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. David Allen Coe.
Mm-hmm.
That's who he was with
way back.
Yeah, way back. And then I remember the first time I saw the Allman Brothers, I see this band open up for him, and it's Government Mule, right? And he plays for an hour and whatever, right? And he comes off stage, and then hey, here's the Allman Brothers. I'm like, that was the guy that was on stage not even 30 minutes ago, and he's going to play for another 2 hours, right. 2 or 3 hours, or whatever it was. And I was like, it's like 5 hours worth of playing.
Yeah.
Yep. And he's going to do it again, like the next 7 nights in a row.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I did get to see him.
He's got some stamina.
I did get to see him, and I asked him that question. I said, why doesn't Government Mule open? He goes, do you know how sore my hands were? He goes, I am just too old to do that anymore, man.
That's great.
He's to the point where he doesn't have to do that anymore. No. Everybody knows the Allman Brothers, and everybody now knows Government Mule. And that's another band that has kind of a jam bandish, cultish like followings as well.
Absolutely,
for sure. Yeah, they trade a lot of tapes and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the times I was playing with Warren, it ended up being me, Warren, and Krasno from Soul Live. And that was great. That was we played While My Guitar Gently Weeps at Brooklyn Bowl.
Oh, nice.
I think it was that one, and that was great. Just to be like in between, those guys, to be in that kind of company was really reaffirming. It's just like, all right, we're doing this.
We're jumping off a cliff.
That is too cool. I distinctly remember sitting with my what is now wife at a restaurant in Elegant City, Maryland, years and years and years ago. And there's something, we're having this awesome meal, and there's something playing over the house system. And I was like, I couldn't stop listening. He goes, who is this? Who is it? I asked the waiter. He came back. He said, somebody called Soul Live. Sold me, man. I've loved him ever since. They're so good.
No, Eric's a great guitar player, and it's a great rhythm section. Neil, the keyboard player, is one of the most talented guys in New York City, as far as I'm concerned. That guy's incredible because he holds down the left-hand bass while playing the organ.
Yeah.
And like that old school kind of thing. And man, that gives you a headache just watching it. It's like you get dizzy watching it. How could you possibly do that?
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I think you sell yourself a little short, because if you're hanging with those cats,
right,
you got to be pulling your own weight. I'm sure Warren Haynes is probably like, hey, good try, or maybe,
Everybody keeps calling back, so I feel like that's a good sign.
That's always a good sign.
There you go. If the phone keeps ringing, you're doing something right.
Exactly.
So what? Go ahead.
Well, just we're talking about Soul Live. Like a lot of they do a week at Brooklyn Bowl every year.
Really?
Here in Brooklyn, and they call it Bowl Live. And they've been cool enough. They invite. I've got a trio, just guitar, bass, and drums. That's all instrumental. It's like Telecaster, music, I guess. And they give us a night. They've given us a night the last 3 years that they've done that in a row to open one of the shows. And I usually end up sitting in with them there too. And that's always like it's great for us. It's a really nice gesture. It feels good to share the stage with those guys.
Wow, that's really cool.
Now, do you have any recordings of that instrumental stuff?
Oh yeah. We the band's called Wolf with an exclamation point, and we put out a record a couple of months ago, maybe earlier this year, on Royal Potato Records. And so it's out, it's on, it's everywhere you can get music, it's Spotify and iTunes and all that. It's
Wolf,
around.
Huh? Wolf with an exclamation point.
Yep.
That's so you don't get them confused with the other Wolf that's out.
It's very important, yeah.
Right. Is there another Wolf out there?
I don't know. It's like Ingve.
I remember Wolf Mother.
There's Wolf. There's probably like 5
Wolves
bands called Wolf, like in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Well, it's like Ingve J. Malmsteen, so you don't get them mixed up with all the other Ingve Malmsteens.
Oh yeah, well,
right. In case there was any confusion.
That's funny. Yeah, I've never been to Brooklyn Bowl. It's supposed to be a way cool place. A friend of mine, Lisa Sharkin, actually puts on a guitar show there every year at Brooklyn Bowl.
Oh, yeah. I've always wanted to go to that. I'm never in town when that happens, but I hear that that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I can never drive up that weekend. It's, one of these days we'll go, I'll let you know or you'll let me know, and we'll both go up there one of these years.
Or we'll do a live podcast from there.
Oh, hey, even better.
We have technology. We can do that shit.
Yeah, we can.
It's 2015.
That's right.
Anything's possible.
We can take this crap on the road.
Little machine and a couple of batteries. We're good, man.
Yeah, totally.
That's it. So, what were you doing with Joss Stone and Questlove, man?
That was a gig. I got asked. I got asked to MD. Be the musical director, kind of like coordinate and sort of like conduct the band on stage for a benefit for an organization called Headcount here in New York. They were putting on an event. They help out with like voter registration for young music fans. They have tables at lots of the big summer festivals and whatnot. Oh, okay. And they put on a show to promote voter registration, and they got in touch with me to be kind of like to be their musical conductor, musical director for that. And I said yes. I didn't know what to expect, and they said, "Okay, great. Joss Stone and Questlove are on it, so you'll be conducting them."
Wow.
And it was just great. It was amazing. That
taking
was we did
Questlove's job away from him.
Yeah, right.
He's the MD, I would assume, in that band.
I assume he is.
So that must have been a fun gig, with.
Oh yeah, it was just great. It was. I think we did a lot of covers, if memory serves, and it was just great. Like we let the singers in the band, like we all sort of did it as a democracy, what tune, and it just ended up everybody wanted to do a bunch of Sly Stone tunes, and to have those guys playing that stuff was just wow. It was amazing. Joss Stone sang her ass off. I mean, it was just like jaw dropping every tune.
Wow,
unbelievable.
Is that did any of that make it to video or anything anywhere? Do you know?
I don't think it was like professionally done, but it must exist somewhere.
Yes, I'm sure somebody's got some YouTube out there somewhere.
Somebody holding the iPhone the wrong way.
Yeah, holding up their iPad.
Yeah, oh, for sure. All right, so I mean, how do you top Joss Stone singing her ass off with Sly Stone material? Does life get any better?
It's hard to top that.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky. There have been a lot of moments where I've just, a lot of shows and a lot of, recordings that I've done where I've just been, you know, you kind of walk off and you're like, well, that just happened. And I don't really know how to, like, you know, like I did 2 nights with John Mayer not too long ago, a couple of months ago. And Phil Lesh from the Grateful Dead was playing bass. It was Phil Lesh and Friends gigs, and John Mayer was on the gig. And, you know, it's like the same thing. It was just like, you just kind of walk off smirking your ass off, you know, just going like, well, that just happened.
And yeah, I was there.
Yeah.
Were you part of the Friends, like for those gigs?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've done quite a. Phil has called me for quite a few fill-in friends now. Mostly out on the West Coast. He has a club that he owns out there called Terrapin Crossroads. And they get me out there a couple of times a year to get our jam on together.
That's very cool, man. That is very cool, because that's you know, the people that follow them are you know, the I mean, it's the Dead community, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Better believe it.
That's another huge audience that still exists, you know.
Oh yeah.
The Dead lives forever, you know.
Yeah, and they love it. I mean, they love the music. You know, it's such its own thing. You know, you go out there and you play for 3.5 hours. Yeah. You know, and nobody leaves. You know, everybody's like still right there with you up to the last note. It's a nice thing.
Wow. So, you know, outside of that, a couple of times a year, you do your own thing around New York. You have your own project. You have your own places that you frequent musically.
Yeah, well, the trio that I mentioned earlier, Wolf, is kind of like my. It's 3 of us, and it's our baby, and it's you know, we've up to this point we've kept it pretty local, but I think that'll be changing in 2016. I think we're going to be. There's been some offers and some interest in taking it on the road. So
we getting back in the van.
I'm going to get back in the van.
There you go. Full circle, man.
That's right.
That's great. You going to make it to the, I guess it's, well, you're in New York, so it would be south of you, but to the Baltimore, Washington,
maybe the
Pennsylvania
8x10
area. Oh, you know the 8x10.
Oh, I've played the 8x10 20 times.
Wow.
Sure. Something like that. Yeah. Crazy, absolutely. Man.
With who have you played the 8x10 with? Not Wolf, because you said you haven't taken Wolf out really. So who have you played there with?
You know, that's like one of the only clubs that Wolf has played outside of town. Yeah, we did a gig there opening for our friend Marco Benevento there last year, I think, 1 year ago.
Wow.
Yeah, great place.
Yeah, I love the place. Great people.
Legendary.
Yes. It was 8x10, and there was a few other names, and now it's back to 8x10, and you know, I love going there. I love playing there. It's a cool place, man. Cool place, great owners. You know, it's,
and crazy history.
Oh yeah,
just insane.
Yeah.
I met Chris Duarte there in the dressing room, which is the alley next to the building.
No, it's not. They have green rooms.
I know, but you know, not at that time. They didn't. This was one of those, you know.
Yeah, it's been there forever.
It's been But I remember he was like, "We got to go out in the alley." So I was standing out in the alley talking to him, got some photos, and cool. You know, just a neat place to see bands.
Yeah, I was just watching footage of Danny Gatton playing there the other night.
Wow.
Now, here's something crazy. His guitar just went up for auction.
I saw that.
Like $50,000, right?
First offer, $50,000. Starting bid.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That better go much higher, because that would be a disgrace if it didn't.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. There's never, well, you know, that went away with Danny.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever stepped back in those shoes.
I mean, there are some guys that do play very similar to Danny.
Yeah, but there
was just something about Danny's execution of that style. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anybody who comes close, though, it looks like they're trying really hard. If you watch, I mean, when you watch that stuff, Gatton couldn't have looked more bored.
It's true.
It's unbelievable. He's standing there, like thinking about. It looks like he's just like thinking about like what kind of sandwich he's going to have, and just burning, absolutely burning. It's
he's thinking about where's he going to get the part for his hot rod.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that's what he's thinking about.
Yeah.
The only guy that I would think that could really do a lot of that chicken picking stuff, still not like him though, would be Johnny Hyland.
Yeah. Right.
And the only reason I think is because he doesn't have sight. He's legally blind. I mean, he can see objects.
Not totally blind.
Yeah. But I would think that would be the only guy that doesn't look like he's putting any effort into it.
I mean, Arlen Roth too.
Yeah.
Arlen Roth.
Yeah. You got one.
Definitely another.
All right. I'll give you that.
Okay. Yeah, they're out there. There's a few, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
now we but this is Scott's show, and we're gonna.
I forgot it. Scott's on the line.
Yeah, Scott's on the line. We're we're definitely keep an eye out for you if you make it to the Mid-Atlantic area here. Especially 8x10.
Yeah, man.
With Wolf. All right, so Scott, one thing we didn't touch on yet. What does your gear look like nowadays? What are you playing?
Yeah, I have two different rigs that I play.
Okay.
I've got two guitars. I'm playing either. My main thing is I play a Telecaster that's got it's a 70s body and a 60s neck, and it's. God, I've changed the pickups in it so many times I lose track of what kind of pickups are in it right now. But I believe they're Lawlers that are in there now.
Oh, okay. Was that the guitar was that the first Tele that you got that kind of changed your life? And did you get it with the two different era body and necks, or has that something that's transitioned over time?
Yeah, no, it's the same. That's the same Tele. It's my one and only Tele, and I haven't touched a thing on it except the pickups. So it came just like that, because the prices on a on an all original 60s Tele is not in the cards right now. They're asking it's insane amounts of money.
Yeah.
So like the Frankenstein Tele is where it's at, and I wouldn't change a thing about that guitar.
Cool.
And then the other guitar that I play, if I'm not playing that, I'm playing a guitar that was built here in New York called a Ronin. There's a company here called Ronin, and they built a guitar for me called a Songbird. That is just it is a Rolls Royce of guitars, if you ask me. It's perfectly made, perfectly balanced, sounds incredible. It's got old 60s DeArmond pickups in it. And
nice.
Man, yeah, it's a very, very unique thing. It's a really special guitar.
Wow.
For sure.
And amp rig, or do you use an amp, or are you virtual? What's that part of it looking like?
Oh, definitely not virtual.
Cool.
Amp guy all the way, and I either play through on bigger gigs. I'll play like in theaters. I play a Fender Twin, just one of the reissues. They actually sound great. The 65 reissue Twin, or in smaller clubs. There's a company in Jersey called Booyah Amplifiers. That,
Booyah.
Yeah, Jamie at Booyah is great. And I had an old Fender Deluxe that wasn't working, and I from one of those. It's a reissue. And I gave it to him to fix up, and he kind of did something to it. I don't know exactly what he did to it, but it sounds amazing. So it's either one of those two amps, and that's it. That's pretty much everything I got.
Wow. No pedals?
Keep it simple. Very little. I use I got a Monster Piece stud, it's called, which is kind of it's just a boost pedal, and that stays on all the time. And other than that, I don't use a ton of stuff. I go through reverb pedals once a month. I try a new reverb pedal, but I haven't found one that's found a permanent place yet.
Really?
Yeah. Oh man, I've got like a whole shelf of just reverb pedals that I've gone through, and they last about a month, and then I get tired. I don't know what it is, but I like to keep things changing too. Though I think that's good to just okay, get an idea for one thing. And then switch
it sounds like that's the only thing that changes in your rig. The rig is it's got to be one of the most simplistic rigs that we've.
Angus Young would be the only other guy out there.
Right. No, I meant just from our guest. It's like, it's guitar, amp,
and boost pedal.
Okay, a boost pedal, but it's kind of like it's on all the time, so it's part of the sound. And
I tape it to the top.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much, right.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I'm a fan of the guitar. I like the sound of an electric guitar, and I feel like, especially in particular with a Telecaster, you can get. There's a lot that you can do with it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, this the Songbird is the guitar that you use, right?
It is.
Okay. Are they single coils or are they P90s? Because that's a very proprietary looking.
Those are the Armands.
They're the Armands.
They're the gold foils.
Yes, and I don't know if they're humbuckers or single coil.
Look at those things.
They're kind of like their own thing.
Yeah.
They are their own thing.
That's why I thought it was like a P90 or something. But
they sound amazing. They were in all the old Silvertone and Harmony guitars, like sort of like student model guitars back in the 50s and 60s. And I think they started to get real popular again because Jack White, a lot of the guitars that he plays.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there are a few guys making reissues of the gold foil Diarmans now.
I got
again, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It definitely is its own thing. It's articulate. It's jangly. It's
oh man, for recording, it's an incredible guitar for recording because it sits in such a unique space. It's really like it stands out. It really does every time.
Very cool.
And then the other thing that I've got is that I recently bought a pedal steel. And I've been
saw that on the Instagram page. I was going to ask you about it.
Real baby steps going through getting that together.
Wow, single neck.
Single neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did say baby steps, right?
Oh man, yeah. I can't even imagine. This is enough. One neck on that thing is enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, a double neck pedal steel has got to be like it's got to be playing an upper and a lower deck on a Hammond and foot pedals.
Well, there you go.
It's like you got to have three brains.
Well, I know I'm not playing it.
Me neither.
Makes three of us.
Right. It takes three of us to play a,
there we go.
Double neck pedal steel.
I'll operate the foot thing.
There you go. Wow. Well, that's crazy. Cool. That's crazy. Well, thanks for breaking down the rig. I know that was very complex, and thanks for taking all that time to do it.
Hey, I did some research real quick. The Red Knob series of the Fenders.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They just seem to be like a small run from like 87 to 93.
Well, but they were tube and solid state ones. The tube ones Paul Revere did.
Oh, okay.
And the solid state ones were like, let's make some solid state amps that look like the tube amps and will confuse everybody.
But they had a little bit more high gain.
Oh, yeah.
That's what their claim was, is that it was like a little bit of high gain thing. Probably just trying to stay in competition with what was going on at that time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
pretty well.
Well, cool.
Yeah, man.
Any new recorded material coming out that people should know about, or anything else you want to tell our fine listeners?
Well, mostly right now it's mostly live stuff, and I guess I do have a website, scottmetzger.com. It's easy to remember.
Cool. It'll be on the show and live out there until
perpetuity,
or four.
In
usually
in
I just
it's one of those days.
Some days.
All right. Well, we're going to keep an eye out for you around here. Anyone in the New York area, keep an eye out for Scott Metzger. Go check him out. Obviously, a hell of a player because he's played with a lot of other hella players. So stick around, check him out.
I got to ask one last question.
Okay.
Is this Wolf album on vinyl?
It's not on vinyl. Unfortunately not.
Oh, so these are CDs stacked up. I'm looking at your Instagram page.
Those are CDs.
Okay. It looks like vinyl. See?
It does. Mission accomplished.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, done it? I was like, whoa, it's on vinyl.
It's thick. There's
such a demand for vinyl right now because it's back.
Oh, yeah.
If there's an 18-month wait
Wow.
To have
it
your
pressed?
album pressed on vinyl.
Because when I saw the machine on the show the other day that does it, I was like, that could take a while. I mean, it's like, and then it just puts the thing out, and then it dumps an album, and then it takes another one. It's not fast.
Well,
when they press that glob of plastic.
Mick, have you learned nothing? Nothing good is fast.
That is true.
And I'm even going for guitar solos because I can't play fast, so I'm going for guitar solos on that too. So there you go. All right, Scott, we're going to have our listeners look you up in New York if they're there, and we're going to look you up here, and unless we're in New York, and then we're going to look you up in New York too now.
Well, we're kind of too close to not hook up with the guy at some point.
For sure.
Yeah, we gotta make that happen.
Yeah, and we'll put your link up there, and hopefully people will look into your material, pick up the CD,
follow him on Instagram.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. So thank you for taking the time with us, man. I know it was a trip back, but now you got something to share with your family. So,
cheers, fellas! I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
It's all good, man. Have a great rest of the evening, man, and keep doing what you do.
You too. Take care.
Thanks. And there you have the story.
Man, what a cool dude.
Totally cool dude. And yet again, somebody that says yes.
Yeah.
And
he gets to walk the streets and people go by him and they go, hey, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think about it sometimes, if I was in a position, you kind of want to be that guy's like, hey, look, it's Eddie Van Halen. But then there's got to be a part of Eddie Van Halen's life where he's like, I would just want to go to the grocery store.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't want to be bugged. I don't want to have somebody taking photos of me all the time. And, but yet he's playing with cats like Warren Haynes and John Mayer.
Honestly, I think that's the ultimate, where you can just go out and have that insane amount of fun and pleasure and make music and have the intense enjoyment from that and do it in front of people who are getting enjoyment from it and just play with fantastic other performers on stage. And then you leave with, like you said, that just happened. You leave with the memory. And then you go do whatever the hell you want to do.
Yeah, you go down to a local pub, hang out with your friends. That's it. You're just Scott in the neighborhood.
Honestly, for me, that's the ultimate.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
And it's a very cool thing.
Yep.
So until next time. My friend.
That's right. And we got to.
And we have to.
Right, because he said.
And I'm going to go to speech class next week. I'm Mick Marcelino.
You got that one out right.
There we go. And you are.
I'm Jeff Bober.
And that's because I don't say that. And we're always saying
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @Amps and Axes. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxescast.com. Thanks for listening.